Hello everybody. Last week I made a more in-depth video on the beginner tips from my tips video from a while back, and today I'm going to be doing a more in-depth video on the intermediate tips from that video. And to start off, I'm going to start with improving your tone. Now there are a lot of things that go into tone production, whether it's your mouthpiece, your reeds, neck, saxophone in general, whether you place the reed correctly or how much mouthpiece you take in whenever you're playing. There's a lot that goes into it. However, no amount of equipment is going to fix a bad tone. It's up to you to practice your tone and make it sound good on its own, and then just use your equipment to aid you in the tone production. So I'm going to give you some exercises to work on and practice to help improve your tone production. And first is the exercise that I covered in the last video, which is mouthpiece pitch. Now, like I said before, you want to try and keep a steady tone in between that 20 cents sharp and 20 cents flat on the tuner. By working on this, you'll learn to get control over the most difficult and finicky part of the instrument, the mouthpiece. And it's that control that will help aid you in creating an excellent tone on the instrument. Now, another exercise to improve your tone is very similar to the mouthpiece pitch exercise in that we're just going to add the mouthpiece onto the neck and do the same thing. However, the neck is going to provide a little bit more stability and make it a little bit less difficult to play. So the goal here is to keep a steady and in tune pitch. This is going to be another building block in the foundation of creating a good tone on your instrument and layering all the pieces of it together. Now, this exercise may feel like you're doing the same thing that you were doing on the mouthpiece, but a little bit easier, but that's not quite the case. It provides a different kind of feeling and sensation when just playing on the neck than it does with just the mouthpiece. So you'll notice some different things and some different difficulties when doing this exercise. And so by doing this, it's creating these building blocks for you to be able to add them all together and create the best possible tone overall on your instrument as a whole. So the next exercise is going to be long tone exercises. This is going to be on your whole instrument, everything put together. And so what you're going to do is you're going to hold a note for as long as you can and keep it as in tune as you can the entire time during that duration. By doing this, one, you're reinforcing what it sounds like to play these notes in tune, so it will help with your intonation. Two, it's going to help with your lung capacity by playing notes over an extended period of time, and it will also help you improve your tone. By doing this exercise through every note at every range of the instrument, you're focusing on each individual note and how they sound each time. And through the process of focusing on each note individually and making sure each note sounds its best every time you play it, you'll begin to improve how each note sounds on its own. And so overall, the sound that you produce on your instrument, your tone, it will improve as well. And so the last exercise that I have for you for improving your tone might be kind of a difficult exercise. I started learning this in high school, so if you're not there yet, this is something for you to look forward to, and that is overtones. So what you're going to want to do is you want to play a middle of the staff B flat. And then, while you are playing that middle of the staff B flat, you're going to want to finger low B flat with all the keys down. And so, whenever you finger that low B flat, you don't want to play that low B flat. You still want the middle of the staff B flat to be sounding. This is what I mean. So even though I'm playing the low B flat, you're still hearing the middle of the staff B flat. And that is the first exercise with overtones that I would probably try and attempt. What this will do is it's starting to train everything on the inside of your mouth and your throat, and teaching you how to manipulate all of that, aside from just the buttons on the instrument. And by adding that extra level of control over the instrument by what's happening here on the inside, that will just help to further improve your tone production and the sound on the instrument overall. So by working on all of those different exercises, that will help you to improve your tone and control over every facet of the instrument. You'll be able to create very strong building blocks. And with those building blocks, you'll be able to create an amazing and excellent tone on your instrument. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is alternate fingerings. Now, I think I covered this in the last video, but there aren't very many, but they're all pretty important because a lot of them can have different functions. Now, the three main functions can be for tone, for intonation, and for technique. As for tone, some alternate fingerings can actually reduce or add the amount of keys that are open on the instrument when you're playing that note, and thus it can provide a more open or closed off sound. Now, there are some notes that are particularly difficult to get in tune with their normal fingerings, and so some of these alternate fingerings, by opening or closing some of the keys, can help raise or lower the pitch of that note, and thus help get that note more in tune than you would normally get with the traditional fingering. And lastly, there are a lot of fingerings that can just help with getting around the instrument in general. There are some alternate fingerings that help you maneuver from one note to the next easier than you would normally be able to with the traditional fingerings, and so fast passages or long runs can be done with a little bit more ease than if you were to use all of the traditional fingerings that you would see in a normal fingering chart. And on top of that, there are some fingerings that are particularly good for trilling. So just being able to press one key as opposed to a bunch of keys can really help increase the speed and ease of your trills. So learn your alternate fingerings because they can help you in a lot of different ways. And I won't go over all of the alternate fingerings, but I will add an extensive fingering chart in the description. Now, the next topic is tonguing. Now, I mostly covered the art of tonguing in the last video, but to reiterate, what you really want to focus on is getting the tip of your tongue and touching it to the tip of the reed. That is going to produce the best tonguing sound. You also want to try and move as little of your tongue as possible when tonguing. This will help with the speed and accuracy of your tonguing, as well as help keep the stability of the notes you're playing while trying to tongue. And one of the things you can do to try and check yourself when you want to know if you're tonguing properly or not. So you can either use a mirror or you can record yourself when you're playing. And by kind of facing to the side, focus on right here, the under part of your jaw and kind of at your throat. If you notice some excess movement down there, where it starts to bulge up and down, that's going to let you know that you're using too much tongue, that there's too much movement going on in there, and that you need to try and control it a little bit more. And if there's any other excess movement, like your jaw itself is moving, that's some other stuff that you can catch by doing this. So you want to try and make sure that there's as little motion as possible down here in your throat. and underside of your mouth, and that's going to tell you that you're doing it correctly. And my last bit of advice with tonguing is that this can be quite overlooked sometimes, but you can hear bad tonguing. It can be quite clear sometimes. So you want to make sure and focus on this because it will be apparent if you haven't. And the last thing that I want to cover is what I talked about with transcribing. At this point, you want to keep transcribing. There's so much stuff you can learn from these great musicians, and it will help reinforce playing really well by playing along with them. And at this point, you probably want to start looking at solos that are a little bit more intricate or longer, stuff that starts to challenge you a little bit more, because the purpose of this is not to take it easy. You want to be challenging yourself with transcribing, and you want to be learning. That's the whole purpose of doing all of this. So I want to give you guys a couple of examples that you can work on that I think would be great for you at this level. And one of them is a Dexter Gordon solo off of the song Blue Bossa. This solo can be quite long, and there's a lot of vocabulary and a few technique things in here that are really great, and I think it can push you guys to learn some new things. Now, the next solo is from a trumpet player named Blue Mitchell off of the song Blue Soul. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, why am I transcribing a trumpet player? But that's very important. You don't want to get caught up in transcribing only saxophone players. You will learn a lot from them, but there are many amazing musicians out there that aren't saxophone players. And there's a lot of interesting things that you can learn from playing along with trumpet players, guitar players, pianists, vocalists, bass players. There's so much that you can learn. So take this opportunity to learn something new from a trumpet player. And beyond that, this solo is just fantastic. I love it. It was one of my favorite solos to transcribe whenever I was in school. And with that, I will leave you all to your practicing. If you liked the video, please leave a like and subscribe. If you want to help out in other ways, I have my Patreon page, which will be in the description. And if you like this type of content, leave me a comment in the comment section below so I can know to make more of these kind of videos for you guys. And with that, happy practicing.